When I talk about liberalism and leftism, people really need to understand that these are two very, very different things. Liberalism, in its true sense, classical liberalism, is about individual rights, meaning that anyone who lives in a society legally should have the exact same rights, regardless of your skin color, your gender, your sexual orientation, or any other immutable characteristic, which, by the way, is exactly what we have in the United States of America. The other sort of basic classical liberal principle is the light touch of government, that you want competition to do as much as possible, but you do understand that we need some level of government. And that really that's the distinction between, say, classical liberalism and the more libertarian approach. But by the way, I happen to like a lot of the stuff that comes out of libertarians. Leftism, as it is, and this is what I would say sort of the Bernie Sanders, AOC, democratic socialists who are only holding on to the word democratic for another few months because they really are socialists, they believe that the government is somehow inherently good and that the government should tell you basically how you can live. And when you take that and then you add what they've added, which is identity politics, the idea that we should be judging each other on our immutable characteristics, meaning black people should think this, white Christian people, who they put at the lowest part of the totem pole, that they must think this and usually have to be quiet about it, or gay people must think this. This is a really, really toxic stew, because I know you know this. None of us would want to be judged by our immutable characteristics.
The book, Don't Burn This Book, I'm assuming your point is that book burning is one of those ways in which you shut people out. You don't hear what they're saying. What you're hoping people will do is to listen to what you're saying. And what you're saying is think for yourself and open yourself up to other ideas. But that's not really the prevailing mindset today, is to listen to people with whom you disagree. What do we need to do to better do that?
Well, I think the most important thing is understand that just because you think something doesn't mean that everyone else has to think exactly the same way. So we've talked about this before, Governor. I know that you and I have some political disagreements, and I think actually we relish in that. I love the fact that I live in a country with people who disagree with me politically. And by the way, that's what our founders wanted. That was the whole idea of federalism and having different states who test different things out and figure out the best way to free, in essence, the most amount of people. I think what's happened here, and that so many people now see, is that the largest group that I believe, the largest underserved group in America today politically, is what I call the politically closeted. It's people that they don't necessarily agree with everything that the Republican side says, and they don't necessarily agree with everything the Democratic side says, but they're afraid to speak out because they don't want to be destroyed by the mob. Now, I do have to add that the right and the Republicans and the conservatives, they happen to be much more open-minded right now. It's not always the case, but right now there is a richness between conservatives and libertarians. Look, who's Trump's number one ally in the Senate? It's our most libertarian senator, Rand Paul. That shows you that there's a richness between conservatives and libertarians right now. But on the left, where is the ability to agree to disagree? It basically is check off these 10 things or you're out. So I sense that the future of American politics is sort of a center-right future.
You know, Dave, when I talk to some people, they don't want to just disagree. But if you don't agree with them 100%, they want to put you out of business. They want to stop your book sales. They don't want to have anyone watch your television show. They don't want anyone to come hear you speak on a campus. I find that to be frightening and dangerous because it does sort of completely erase the heart of what America is supposed to be, where people are free and they can say things, even outrageous things, ridiculous things, but they're free to say them. I just don't have to be forced to accept them.
Let's not forget that the free speech movement in America, where did it start really in earnest? It was in the 60s in Berkeley. So free speech was a lefty principle at some point. Let's also not forget that I believe it was 1971, Skokie, Illinois, there's the famous ACLU case where they defended the rights of neo-Nazis to march in Skokie, Illinois, which was the home, I think, of the largest amount of Holocaust survivors in the United States. And by the way, that was the right decision. The Nazis weren't allowed to do anything violent, but they were allowed to express their views, as odious as we may all think those views are. What the left has morphed into now is if you don't buy into whatever they do want to burn your book. So actually right now, I mean, part of the idea of titling the book, Don't Burn This Book, was that I didn't expect us to be in 1941 Germany where we're literally, doing bonfires, throwing books into fires. But as you said, why do you burn books? Well, it's because you don't want those ideas to be heard. Well, right now there's a massive coordinated assault on my Amazon reviews and some of the online retailers to suppress the reviews of the book, not because they've read the book or they're countering the ideas, but just because they don't want these ideas heard. So that, I would say, is a digital or a modern book burning.
Well, it is a great book. It's one that I hope people of all ages will read, but I especially hope people who are college age and in their 20s and 30s will read it, because I think that they're really most at risk of growing up in a world and living in a world where they're not free to think for themselves. You are doing us a great service by reminding us of the power of free thinking. Dave Rubin, thank you so much for joining us again. Delighted to have you back and look forward.
Thank you, Governor.
Which is already a bestseller, and we hope it continues to rise to the top and stay there for a long time. All right, Keith Bilbrey is going to tell our viewers how they can enjoy more of Dave Rubin's political and cultural insights. He's going to tell us right now.
Gladly, Governor. Don't Burn This Book is available now at Amazon and other booksellers. Watch the Rubin Report on YouTube, and you can find all things Dave Rubin at daverubin.com and follow him online at Rubin Report.